How's it going, everybody? Ed Ricker here, and this is a video about the DJI Mavic Air 2. I've had it for almost 2 weeks now, and I've been able to use it with some creative hobbyist flights as well as some professional Part 107 gigs. Now, coming from a Mavic 2 or a Mavic Mini owner's perspective, this drone is very easy to get going with. The DJI Mavic line has always been great for first-time flyers and beginners in the drone world. First off, the look. It's the first thing that we see, we notice. I was kind of surprised to see that the Mavic Air 2 looks like a cross between maybe a Mavic 2 body style and a Mavic Mini or maybe an Osmo Pocket camera style. I do miss the unique look that the original Mavic Air had, but this is looks we're talking about, and once we're flying it, we're not even thinking about that anymore. But with the Mavic Air 2 being bigger and heavier than the original one, it's not really a pocket drone anymore. It doesn't feel like an upgrade. It almost feels like its own category that's encroaching on the Mavic 2 market. For instance, 34 minutes max flight time, 120 megabits per second video, 4K 60 frames per second video, 1080 at 240 frames per second, 8K hyperlapse, and 2 kilometers further range. All those specs beat the Mavic 2. The Mavic Air 2 is definitely a strong contender in the Mavic line and maybe something you would consider over the Mavic 2 when you're purchasing. Now let's talk a little bit more about the frame rates and resolution. 4K, 2.7K, and 1080p are your resolution options. For 4K and 2.7K, you can shoot between 24 and 60 frames per second, but at 1080, you get those slow-mo options of 120 frames per second and 240 frames per second. We've never really seen that in a DJI drone before. 240 at 1080? That's pretty impressive, but also the 120 megabits per second means we're jamming more information and potentially more clarity into our video. There's also the 40 megapixel camera. I'm not a photographer at heart, so I won't be talking much about the camera. There are a lot of other YouTubers that do a great job with that. Also, Hyperlapse is available, just like in the Mavic 2. It's a little bouncy. I've seen that the Hyperlapse kind of goes up and down. Even on a day where it wasn't very windy, I'm not getting a very smooth Hyperlapse, but it's still fun to experiment with. Now, the DJI Mavic Air 2 is controlled by the DJI Fly app, just like the Mavic Mini. It does not use the DJI Go 4 app like the Mavic Phantom or Spark drones. ISO and shutter speed can be controlled, but the aperture is fixed at f2.8. If you want to be able to use a decently low shutter speed on a bright day for some motion blur and maybe a more natural video look, you'll need to use ND filters. The Mavic Air 2 comes with 3 ND filters if you go for the Fly More combo, but if you've ever used ND filters before, you know that there are some big gaps left in that ND filter selection. ND16 is just too dark for most of the overcast flights that may call for more of an ND4 or an ND8. So at this point, I'd actually like to introduce today's video sponsor, Freewell, and their all-day 4K series filter kit. Neutral density plus polarizers. This pack includes the ND4, 8, 16, and then also a circular polarized 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. Polarizers allow you to block some of the polarized light from reflections on non-metallic surfaces like water, windows, leaves on trees, anything like that. Kind of makes things a little more saturated, a little more radiant when you look at them. Turning the filter, the polarized filter, will allow you to increase or decrease that effect. Neutral density is just a way of darkening the image. So if you want to have maybe a 1/60th shutter speed with a low ISO, your image may be blown out in the middle of a sunny day. So that's why you'd want to put a darkening filter, and you can maintain that low shutter speed and also get proper exposure on your photo or your video. Freewell has always made some great filters and other gear for drones. I've used them with my Phantom 4 Pro, my Mavic Pro, my Mavic 2 Pro, my Mavic 2 Zoom, my Mavic Air, and I appreciate their continued support of this channel. Now, I mentioned the Fly More combo a bit earlier, $800 US for just the drone and the controller and a few limited accessories, but $1,000 US for the Fly More combo. It includes the previously mentioned 3 ND filter kit. It also includes 2 extra batteries, the carry bag, more props, and a 3 battery charger hub. It also includes a USB charging adapter to turn your battery into a USB charger. I did go for the Fly More combo, and I'm so glad that I have those 2 extra batteries. You never get that full 34-minute flight time because we're flying in real-world environments and not a test environment that they may have timed it out on the spec sheet. Talking about the sensors, we have front and rear and downward sensors. We also have an auxiliary light on the bottom for landing and positioning when it's very dark outside. In the DJI Fly app, on the bottom or the top of the screen, whether it's rear or front facing sensors being activated, you can see a very rough depiction of what it's sensing. So I was pointed at my vehicle, and I can see that it's sensing my vehicle, and it can actually sense the individual parts in between the open windows. That was pretty impressive to me. The rear sensors, however, it kind of shows a big blob. It's not quite as detailed as those stereo front-facing sensors. The Mavic Air 2 also has ADS-B, or Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, DJI AirSense system. Now, this is not something that is a worldwide shipping Mavic Air 2 feature. I think it's only in the United States at the moment, but it allows the drone to sense and to monitor air traffic around you. So if there's a helicopter or a manned plane or aircraft of another sort flying near you, it'll give you messages and warnings and let you know that there's a manned aircraft nearby and to watch out, or maybe to land if you get that close. For finding your drone in space when you don't see it line of sight, there is the same compass and directional map that the Mavic Mini has at the bottom of the DJI Fly app, where it shows where the pilot is and also shows in relation to where the pilot is, the drone is. And then the drone also turns, and you can kind of figure out which way it's pointing if you're too far away to really see that, in line of sight. The drone relies on a micro SD card for storage, but it does have 8 gigabytes of internal storage, which is great if you forget your card, or maybe you have a full card and you haven't offloaded your footage. You can still get a couple extra shots and just record them to the internal storage. ActiveTrack 3.0 is pretty impressive. Now, I'm careful with the Mavic Air 2 ActiveTrack because it does not have side sensors. And side sensors, in my opinion, is a big part of ActiveTrack. You want to make sure that you can follow something or follow yourself and not have to continue and constantly monitor whether the drone is going to be running into a tree sideways or something. But it does have ActiveTrack 3, and it has trace or parallel modes. I love parallel because the drone can stay in front of you, moving backward as you may be approaching the drone. So if you position the drone so it's facing you, and then you walk toward the drone, it will back up and will not deviate to the left or the right. It'll stay on its trajectory moving backward. And then, of course, that rear sensor is going to pick up any problems as it moves backward. So it actually is a pretty great ActiveTrack system there. The Mavic Air 2 also has HDR video option. I guess that would help with maybe dynamic range, but at least right now with the DJI Fly app, it makes the video camera settings go to automatic. You cannot choose manual settings when you're in HDR mode. That kind of sucks. I mean, I wish that we were able to adjust the exposure and the ISO and the shutter speed if we wanted to in HDR video, but no, it locks us out of those manual camera settings and it's only automatic, at least as far as I could find. It does have other quick shots, your droney, your asteroid and all that stuff. I'm not really interested in some of those things, but let's go to remote control setup and feel. The remote control is different design. This is the first time that we've had a Mavic-style controller with a top-mounted display, bracket. The way it mounts is, it's solid when you get it in there, but it's going to take a little bit of practice to get it in there snugly. I have a Google Pixel 4 XL, shout out to Team Pixel, and it fits just fine, but it can't get much wider than that. So this is not going to be a tablet bracket or anything like that, although you might be able to buy aftermarket tablet brackets and then use an iPad mini or something like that. The remote control has the data cable built in underneath that bracket, so you pull the bracket out and then you can lift up one end of that cable and you can wrap it around to plug into your phone. This is a decent method. Just remember to wind that cable back up before you press the display bracket all the way back in. I have caught that cable a few times and I put a nice dent into it, so just keep that in mind. Take your time. The smart controller has 240 minutes of battery life, so well more than what you need to go through your 3 Fly More combo batteries. Maybe even do that twice over, fly 6 batteries, you'd still be fine. In the center of the remote, you also have your normal, your tripod, and your sport modes. You can flip that switch back and forth. Tripod mode is going to be a very slow, controlled way of flight. Normal's normal, and then sport mode, it turns all of the obstacle avoidance off and gives you max speed, which is about, I think, 41 miles per hour. At least that's as fast as I could get it going. Never got above 41 miles per hour, even downwind. So I consider 41 miles per hour to be the max. In normal mode, the drone feels pretty good, but yaw is a bit sensitive, and the sticks do seem to be very responsive. Even in tripod mode, I was trying to do a few shots in tripod mode, and I was kind of surprised at how sensitive the yaw still was. when we were using the Mavic Pro and other versions of DJI devices that use DJI Go 4 app, we could turn down some of the sensitivity of that yaw or some of the sensitivity of other movements how we preferred. With the DJI Fly app, there's no way to adjust your sensitivity. So tripod mode will reduce sensitivity a little bit, and it'll slow down the drone, but I want it to be even slower. And there's no way for me to dial in that feel that I used to go for. So that's disappointing to me. One thing that I really love about the Mavic Air 2 over the Mavic Air is the quiet props. The Mavic Air really buzzed a lot. I don't know, it's probably the worst sounding DJI drone that I can think of in the last couple of years that's been released. So to have the Mavic Air 2 with these longer, low noise props is a welcome upgrade. The field of view of the camera is 84 degrees, which is wider than the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom field of view when it's zoomed out all the way. The Mavic 2 Zoom was wider than the Mavic 2 Pro, so this means that this is the widest field of view over the Mavic 2 Zoom or the Mavic 2 Pro. And sometimes I like that wide field of view, and sometimes that's why I would choose the Mavic 2 Zoom over the Mavic 2 Pro, is because of that widest angle zoomed out field of view. Now we have an even wider field of view by 1 degree, so that's one more bonus if that's something that you're looking for. Not everyone wants a wide field of view, but it's here. When I bought this, I did go for DJI Care Refresh. I know there are other insurance plans or policies, third party and stuff, but I went with DJI Care Refresh, and I usually do. I've had to use it multiple times on different drones, my Mavic 2 Pro, my Phantom 4 Pro. Actually, I've had to send in my Mavic 2 Pro twice now with DJI Care Refresh. So I'm very glad I had at least something. So when you do buy this, consider that. DJI Care Refresh does not cover drones that are non-recoverable. So if you lose this at the bottom of a lake or on the top of a mountain and you can't get it, DJI Care Refresh is not going to mean anything to you. But if you crash it into a street sign like I did it with my Mavic 2 Pro, then it will definitely cover the repair with a small additional fee. Stability in the wind is similar to what we would expect with the Mavic style body. I always like how Mavics, especially like the Mavic 2 or now the Mavic Air 2, how they cut through the wind. They're so low profile. I really feel like the Mavic line of drones is so much more stable in high wind than the Phantom 4 Pro. So I've taken this out on a few windy occasions and it's really held itself together. The gimbal also works great to stabilize the footage, but one thing that we had encountered with previous models, and now, of course, the Mavic Air 2, we're testing it out. In sport mode, if you have your gimbal pointed all the way up and then you mash forward in sport mode, that gimbal is going to go down a few degrees. It doesn't stay up where you set it if you start mashing forward at 41 or 42 miles per hour. This is especially true if you've enabled the feature that allows you to tilt the camera or the gimbal up past 0 degrees with the horizon. You might be able to bump it up to about -7 degrees while still pushing forward all the way in sport mode, but it's definitely not going to stay all the way up where you put it. I'll be making a setup tutorial about this drone in the coming weeks, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out about it. It's a good drone, and the fact that it beats out the Mavic 2 Pro or Zoom in certain features, it's really impressive for the price. $800 for the drone or $1,000 for the Fly More combo with the spec sheet. I don't think you can get any better at the moment. Check the link in the video description to the Mavic Air 2. If you buy it through that link, it does support my channel. Also in the description is the link to the all-day 8-pack for the DJI Mavic Air 2 by Freewell. Thank you again to Freewell for sponsoring this video. And as always, thanks so much for watching and happy flying.